Football Christmas in New England is just days away, and if you've been listening, you've heard all the clamoring from the Patriots fans. After back-to-back 4-win seasons, this year, everyone is expecting some sort of jump, and to talk about it now and the first matchup of the season, joining us now is CBS Sports NFL staff writer Tyler Sullivan. We have finally made it, Tyler, 2 days away from the first Patriots game, and the Patriots, they start things off with a major question mark at one of their key spots, and that's cornerback with Christian Gonzalez, who did not practice again yesterday. So let's start there. If he does not play in this upcoming game against the Raiders, how much does that affect the Patriots here in week one?
It's massive. And funny enough, Joe, we talked about this exact situation last week. We were questioning New England's depth at key areas on their roster. And I specifically pointed out the cornerback spot because that is supposed to be a strength of this team. You look back at the offseason for the New England Patriots, the minute that they signed Carlton Davis in free agency, you thought, wow, this could be one of the top two pairings at corner in the NFL between him and Christian Gonzalez. But after that, there's a little bit of question. There's not a lot of depth behind those two. You look at what would happen if Christian Gonzalez, as you referenced, hasn't practiced the last few days. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury since coming up a little limp in the first day of full pads covering Stephon Diggs. You look at that depth behind them. It's Alex Austin, who has 4 starts over the last 2 years with the team. DJ James has largely been a practice squad player. Charles Woods was recently claimed off waivers. So you do have some questions there. Of course, Christian Gonzalez is a second-team All-Pro player, so no matter what, if you lose somebody of that caliber, it's going to hurt your secondary. But the questions now behind him, I think, are going to be echoed even further in this game without him.
Especially going up against what will be an improved Raiders passing offense this season. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's talk about the Patriots quarterback, Drake Maye, and obviously a big year 2 coming up for Drake Maye. What kind of strides are you hoping to see from him here in his first game of the season against Las Vegas?
There is so much hype surrounding Drake Maye coming into year 2, and rightfully so. This entire rebuild, as much as we're talking about as great of an offseason as they had building around Drake Maye, whether it was on the personnel side or it was at the head coaching spot by bringing in Mike Vrabel, all of this rebuild means nothing unless Drake Maye takes that leap in year 2 and solidifies himself as the franchise cornerstone, as that quarterback that we all expect him to eventually become. We saw flashes of it last year, and now you want to see it on a more consistent basis now that he's in year 2, entering his first season as the full-time starter. The tricky thing here with Drake Maye is that as much as we saw those flashes last year, he's kind of in a rookie year yet again. He's learning an entirely new offense with Josh McDaniels now as the offensive coordinator. The head coaching position obviously different, going from Gerard Mayo to Mike Vrabel. So there is a lot of newness for him, even though he's going back into a familiar role as the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. And you saw a little bit of those lumps in the preseason. He didn't throw for a passing touchdown, but you saw him flash with his legs. He did have a fumble in that game against Washington. So there are some things that I think we're going to see, maybe some second-year rookie lumps, if that makes sense. But I ultimately think that this is someone who the Patriots have built around quite nicely. The offensive line should be better. The weapons around him are certainly better. And if the defense plays to the caliber that we think it can be, he won't be asked to go throw for throw with a lot of these quarterbacks because this defense should be able to slow opposing offenses down. So the setup here for Drake Maye is really nice, and the talent that we saw last year, if that flashes on a more consistent basis, this will be a far more competitive football team than we saw in 2024.
And you mentioned the part about the coaching as it's related to the newness of this season. And Tyler, I'm thinking about, where I was sitting earlier in the year where Mike Vrabel had that opening press conference after he got the job as the head coach of the Patriots. And he had a quote in there that really stood out. He said he wants to remove a sense of entitlement that was within the group of players from last season. So as we approach week 1 here, Tyler, how do you think he's done that in this first camp in that sense?
Yeah, look no further to the leadership on the players' side. This time last year, the Patriots had captains that consist of David Andrews, Jabril Peppers, Juwan Bentley, Joe Cardona, every single one of the captains from 2024 are gone. Jabril Peppers, the most notable, recently being released. And I think that that's going to show you that, yes, this is a new leadership. Who you were yesterday does not necessarily mean you are the same person today, and what you mean to this football team. You look at some of the new captains this season. Of course, Drake Maye was going to be one of them, but the two guys that stick out to me are Robert Spillane and Harold Landry. Those are two guys that have familiarity with the coaching staff at prior organizations. Of course, Harold Landry was with the Tennessee Titans with Mike Vrabel. Robert Spillane has a history with both Vrabel and Josh McDaniels with his time with the Las Vegas Raiders most recently. So to me, I think that that's probably the most interesting aspect in terms of seeing that those words come into practice. The fact that all of the leaders that were here a year ago and a lot of the leaders that were here under the previous regimes of the previous few seasons are no longer with the organization. They are really starting fresh, no matter who you were prior to this season.
There's a ton of rookies on this Patriots roster, Tyler, but I want to focus on two, and I think it's the two that people will be talking about the most going into Sunday. That's Will Campbell and TreVeyon Henderson. What can we expect from both of them in this first game?
Well, first and foremost, the one that we should be looking at a little bit more intently is Will Campbell, the first-round pick of the New England Patriots, slated to be the starting left tackle, but did pop up on the injury report on Thursday. So he was limited with an ankle injury. We'll see how that develops on Friday and what his ultimately game status will be. So something to keep an eye on there. But if he plays, if everything goes according to plan, he will be the starting left tackle for the New England Patriots. And that, to me, is so massive because, again, when you bring in somebody with a first-round talent, you're expecting them to be a day-one contributor. And watching them throughout the summer, Will Campbell has been the set-and-forget left tackle. There really hasn't been much competition, really any competition at that position. He's been the guy. He will be tested early, whether it's Max Crosby or Malcolm Kuntz, the pass rushers for the Las Vegas Raiders. Those will be things we'll have to watch. We'll see how he immediately transitions to the NFL coming from LSU, so somebody to kind of pay attention to there. And then looking at TreVeyon Henderson, no doubt the most exciting player from the summer. He took the first kickoff, 100 yards for a touchdown, was really making plays out of the backfield. In terms of expectation for him, I still view him primarily as the kind of James White role in Josh McDaniels' offense. I think he's going to be there in a lot of passing situations, especially if the Patriots are trailing in games this season. But what we saw this summer, I think there's an opportunity for more. I think there's a situation here where he could just pretty much be your bell cow back if everything aligns up nice. That's not to say that Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson won't have roles in this backfield, but I think that TreVeyon Henderson is going to make it harder and harder for this coaching staff to keep him off the field if he continues to take what he did in the preseason into the regular season.
No doubt that would be such a great development for the Patriots if he turns into that type of player. Let's close things out with the team that they're matching up against on Sunday. And there are so many new members of this Raiders team. First off, you have a new head coach in Pete Carroll. So two first-year head coaches within their respective organizations now matching up in week one. But Las Vegas also has a new running back in Ashton Genty, a new quarterback as well in Geno Smith. And of course, Brock Bowers comes back, second-year tight end. He had a great rookie campaign. What do you make of this Raiders team here in this first game that they're going to be going up against the Patriots?
I always kind of find it funny when we talk about Pete Carroll, his first-time head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. The dude's going to be 74 years old. He's been around the league for a long time. He was coaching the Patriots in the 90s, so it's just funny to kind of call him a first-year head coach. But it's true. And you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, they kind of feel like in a similar position to the New England Patriots, just with a lot less hype. But, obviously, as you reference, Pete Carroll coming in as a head coach. You have Geno Smith as a new quarterback. I actually think that combination will do them well out of the gate because of that rapport that they have, both being in Seattle a few years ago together, really Pete Carroll being the orchestrator of Geno Smith's resurgence of his career. But to me, those two guys, I think, raise the floor of the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if they necessarily do anything to the ceiling, but I think they raise the floor, very similar to what Mike Vrabel does for the New England Patriots, raises the floor over a 4-win team from a year ago. Now with this team, with the ceiling of the Las Las Vegas Raiders, it'll totally be dictated by their young stars. Ashton Genty is a generational prospect at the running back position, was a stud at Boise State, was putting up just video game type numbers, and the Las Vegas Raiders were dead last in the NFL in rushing a season ago. So they are going to totally revamp that area of their offense. Brock Bowers had the best rookie season for a tight end in NFL history. He will continue to be a focal point of their offense, and so will old friend Jacoby Myers. Don't sleep on him as well. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season. Yes, he did have a trade request, but the Raiders decided to not allow that. He is still going to be part of this organization. I think those three figures, if we're looking at week 1 and beyond for the Raiders, those are the guys to keep an eye on.
You mentioned the ties between Pete Carroll and the Patriots. You're right, obviously former head coach of New England. How about a member of the ownership group for the Raiders has a statue outside of Gillette Stadium now in Tom Brady? So the ties continue there. Should be a lot of fun to watch. Tyler, thanks so much for the time. Glad we're back doing this. Glad that football season is back, and thanks for joining us. And be sure to catch Patriots All Access tonight at 7 p.m. on WBZ. We'll take you behind the scenes and have interviews with tight end Hunter Henry and head coach Mike Vrabel. And then on Sunday, we'll start you off with Patriots Game Day at 11:30 on WBZ. Pats and Raiders kick off at 1, also on WBZ, followed by the fifth quarter postgame show on TV 38.